Nrsimhananda Prabhu, thank you very much for inviting me to this illustrious assembly, as I said. And Keshav Maharaj asked me to present little work which I have done by studying certain documents of Srila Prabhupada. And it resulted in a book which is called Deliberation on Prabhupada's Mission. Specifically, it's two documents where Srila Prabhupada elaborates on his mission and his vision. And as an introduction to this, I can try to make a little connection between the first part of the discussion, which I was a witness of, when Brahmatirtha Prabhu was presenting his ungrateful service as a mediator between the two parties who don't want to be mediated. So to make this little connection, what I should say is that the situation which we have in the society at the moment is that we definitely have diversity, but there is less and less unity. At least we can see this dynamic. The unity is disappearing more or less from the society because of the natural reasons. I'm not planning to say this, or I'm not intending to say this in a bad way. It's a natural process of disintegrating human society due to, again, natural reasons, because everyone has different agendas. We are from different parts of the world. Somebody is from Brazil with Rasa Lila on the background. Somebody is from Africa. Somebody is from LA, as you good self, and somebody is from India. There are so many different backgrounds. And we also can see that people who join, I could very clearly see that there is a different dynamic if we analyze who joins. Those people who joined in the 70s when Prabhupada started his movement were different than the people who joined in the 80s and 90s. And in different countries, according to the different history of the country, also the dynamics, the social dynamic is different. Like recently I spoke with one Indian leader, and he told me a very interesting thing. He said that before in India, many uneducated people joined ISKCON who were seeking for some improvement of their material condition. And now it's a completely different, completely different group of people who are mostly joining ISKCON. And some of them have very strong nationalistic agenda, Hindutva, so to speak, agenda. And it all influences our society. Our society is very diversified due to its history, due to its, basically history of development in different countries. So, in this condition, in this situation, to try to find a very strong unifying principles is very important, and naturally we have to look for these unifying principles in Srila Prabhupada's writings, in Srila Prabhupada's own words. Otherwise, the different agendas which every one of us has, we all have slightly different agenda. Of course, we all ultimately want to come to Krishna, but still, nevertheless, we have slightly different agendas, slightly different emphasis, slightly different interests, material interests in the society. It will inevitably turn apart our society. And it's already doing this. We see this completely, this argument about Vaishnava Diksha Guru, I think it's just top of the iceberg. It's just the tip of the iceberg, showing how actually divided our society is internally. And it's really difficult situation, and we have to look and to see what we can do to bring more unity within this society. Diversity will be there. There is no doubt about it. It will be there. It's taken for granted. Diversity will always be there. Artificial unity, by imposing artificial unity, we also will not achieve anything. So we'll have to seek for unity from the internal unifying principles which are formulated by Srila Prabhupada. And therefore, basically what I'm going to present to you, I was told that I have 45 minutes. Very briefly, I will present my little research which I did on these two documents. These two documents, one is called Constitution of Association. And this document is found in the folio. If you type Constitution of Association, you will find it. And this is the document which Srila Prabhupada entered into his diary just a couple of days before registration of ISKCON. ISKCON was registered in 11th of July, if I'm not wrong, or 11th of June of 67. And just a few days before 7th of the same month, I don't remember whether it is June or July, but it doesn't matter. So just few days before registration, Srila Prabhupada, he puts into his diary this elaborate document consisting of 19 points where he describes the vision of his society, mission and vision of his society. And we know the abridged version of this document. The abridged version of this document is famous 7 purposes of ISKCON, which were officially registered. That is official, document which was registered a few days later. But as far as I could see, I tried to investigate the history of this document. I asked Mukunda Maharaj, who was the witness of the whole thing. And by the way, he's the signer under this document. I asked Satsvarup Maharaj, but nobody remembers exactly what happened. But most probably, of course we're guessing, but most probably this was the original intention of Srila Prabhupada. He wanted to register our society with this elaborate description of the mission of the society. But probably due to some legal reasons or legal advice, ultimately ISKCON was registered with the abridged version of the same thing, 7 purposes of ISKCON. But, of course, 7 purposes of ISKCON is the fundamental document and we try to follow it. But this document I'm talking about sheds the light and gives more clear understanding of what is behind these 7 purposes of ISKCON. And I compared this document, which Prabhupada entered into his diary, with another document which he before in 50s formulated while he was working on the League of Devotees. He published at that time booklet about the constitution of the League of Devotees, and basically it's identical documents with interesting slight variations. And again, comparing these 2 documents and comparing them with the 7 purposes of ISKCON, we can much more clearly understand what Srila Prabhupada had in mind while founding ISKCON. And in my humble opinion, if we propagate this and try to deliberate on this, especially in this year, which is the year of 125th anniversary of Srila Prabhupada's birth, and so many other events are significant. If we try to deliberate in more details on these documents, we may find a solution to this unhealthy diversity. There is healthy diversity and unhealthy diversity. And my not very optimistic analysis of the present situation in ISKCON is that the unhealthy diversity is really rampant now. And it's little undercovered, but it will surface, and it is already surfacing in different ways. And if we don't find very strong unifying principles in the words of Srila Prabhupada and the mission of ISKCON, and if we are not really imbibe this mission within ourselves, it will be difficult to maintain the unity of ISKCON. And ISKCON will have the same fate as many other religious organizations, when there will be one split after another split after another split because of natural unhealthy diversity, so to speak. Anyway, that's the introduction. So I will not be able to give justice to this document. It's very detailed document. As I said, 19 points in this document, and practically the same from this booklet of League of Devotees. I did write, as I said, a small book or booklet on this topic, and this booklet, I wrote it in Russian. This booklet is translated into English. So if anyone is interested, I will gladly share with you this translated document, and you can have a look. But I will give a little presentation how I did it. I will explain what I did. So can I have the right to demonstrate the screen? Narasimhananda Prabhu?
You should be able to do it automatically. I don't think I have to give you...
Okay, yes, it's there. You're right. Thank you, Chandrasekhar Maharaj. So, where is it? Yes, it's here.
I don't know about anyone else, but this has really piqued my interest. It's really something, so happy that Maharaj has taken this up as a study.
Yeah, it's it's really interesting document. Especially, it's interesting because it's written in an unusual style, in Prabhupada style. Sometimes it's a little difficult to understand what Prabhupada means. The language is sometimes problematic, but at the same time, it's very revealing. If you get into it, it really sheds a lot of light of what Prabhupada intended for our society. And I personally think humbly that, again, studying this document or having the culture to study this document and try to really imbibe this document will help a lot to us. So I will just show to you, I first give the preliminary analysis of the structure and of the structure of this document. And this document actually is divided into 3 big parts. Each consists of 6 subpoints. The first 6 points is about the external mission of ISKCON. What ISKCON is supposed to do for the world, for the society at large, for society in general. Next 6 points, it's actually 3 points, but the third point has 4 subpoints. So it's, again, the same 6 points, is about internal mission of ISKCON. What we're supposed to do for our members, for those devotees who already joined ISKCON, who dedicated their life. And it gives a very interesting description. And the rest of the document, again consisting of 6 or 7 points, is about practical methodology, how to achieve these purposes. So this is the 3 big parts of this document, and especially first and the second part are very interesting, and need to be analyzed in a very thorough manner. So, and I will show you what I did in this document, in this little work which I did. I give the formulation of from the Constitution of Association. Let's take the first point of Constitution of Association, and then underneath you will see the same point from the League of Devotee document. To educate the greater human society in the techniques of spiritual life as the basis for a balanced psychic and biological development, and thereby achieve for the first time in human society a real peace and unity among the contending forces in the world today. And this, as you see, this is a little more elaborate version of the first purpose of ISKCON. And the same point from the booklet of the League of Devotees: to propagate spiritual knowledge systematically, for checking the imbalance of life to the whole race of India and the world over, with a view to educate the people in general in the techniques of spiritual life as the basis for balanced psychic and biological developments of the human race, and thereby achieve real unity and peace of the contending elements of the present world. So as you see, the language is quite special. There is a special flavor in Prabhupada's formulation of this document. But you know, it's very interesting to meditate on these points because it really reveals what Prabhupada means. So what I did, I put point by point these 2 documents, compare them, and then using other very important documents from Srila Prabhupada, like his letter to Dr. Patel, his essay Gita Nagari, and some other, of course, all other books and writings of Prabhupada, but specifically his documents where he was speaking about his mission. I'm trying to decipher this, to explain what really Prabhupada means, because it's not really clear what he means. For example, what does he mean by saying basis for a balanced psychic and biological development? What are these techniques of spiritual life as the basis for balanced psychic and biological development? And so just to give you little example of how I analyze it, you please let me know when I should finish. I believe I have 15 more minutes. Yes, Simhananda Prabhu?
No, Maharaj, you have much longer than that.
So what does it mean? What does this techniques of spiritual life mean? You know, and I analyze it by trying to find out the same expressions in Prabhupada's writings. And basically, my conclusion by studying this is that this techniques of spiritual life, which brings this balanced psychic and biological development, and which can bring together the contending forces in the world today, is this paradigm that we as humans are the trinity of the soul, mind, and the body. And Prabhupada says this, techniques of spiritual life, and he uses psychic and biological development. And basically what he means to say that this paradigm, Vedic paradigm, the very fundamental Vedic paradigm, that there is soul, there is mind, and there is physical body. If we understand this paradigm properly, if we understand that the soul is the prime element of this trinity, that the soul is the most important element, then the balanced psychic and biological development will take place. And that's basically using our ISKCON jargon or ISKCON language, the first point of Prabhupada means to preach this slogan, ISKCON slogan famous, you're not this body, but your spirit soul. And how this understanding actually harmonizes the individual life and the life in the society. All the imbalances which we are witnessing in the society is due to this forgetfulness of this simple paradigm. This paradigm is unfortunately forgotten in the society, and therefore we see all kinds of imbalances. People are fighting for the resources, physical resources, and environment is suffering because of this. And then also the mind of people is affected by this competitive spirit again, because people primarily identify with the body. So, and that's the technique. This is the techniques of spiritual life. And Prabhupada, he, in one of his quotes, which I give here, says that Bhagavad Gita, the whole Bhagavad Gita, is the book of the techniques of spiritual life. So basically, by techniques of spiritual life, Prabhupada means the basic paradigm of Bhagavad Gita, to preach Bhagavad Gita in a practical way. What are the practical conclusions of Bhagavad Gita and how to apply the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita in our day-to-day life. And then again, very interesting point here, if we analyze the language of Prabhupada, we can see in these first points, in two formulations of this first point, we can see the word systematic, we can see the word knowledge, we can see the word value, and we can see techniques. So anyone who is familiar with the education will recognize that we always say that what is education? Education is the systematic process to give people knowledge or theory, to teach people the skills or techniques, the practical application of this, and to change people's value. So basically, by saying this, Prabhupada is stressing one very important point, that ISKCON as an educational institution. We have to systematically educate people how to change their values, how to acquire new skills to live within this paradigm, and of course to have the foundational knowledge to live properly within this paradigm, this Vedic paradigm. So that's a little very short explanation of this first point. And by giving different quotations of Srila Prabhupada, I think I was quite sincere. I didn't want to impose any agenda on Prabhupada. I was really trying to find out what he means. And therefore, I think it's quite interesting. At least for me, I had a lot of fun working on this. And at the end, I'm summarizing the whole essence, because there is a lot of quotes. To make it more clear, I give point-by-point summary of this point. Spiritual knowledge communicated in the Vedas is universal and scientific, especially knowledge of eternal relationship between living beings and God as servant and master, Sambandha Gyan. And basically, Prabhupada always, especially in these first points of this document, he stresses this scientific nature of Krishna consciousness or Krishna conscious theory. And his idea is definitely to bring the unity in the world. So how to do this, how to preach Krishna consciousness in non-sectarian way, if we want to know this, we should really study these documents. It's really interesting, especially the second and the third points of this document. I will briefly explain the second and the third points of this document as well. So anyway, I just, there is, I'm giving this summary of this or essence of my conclusions, how I see or analyze or understand what Prabhupada really means. The second point is even more interesting. The second point is really, especially if we read the formulation in the prospect of League of Devotees, it's really interesting. And it's very unusual to propagate the sense of Godhead, sense with the capital S. So basically the concept or the understanding, the sense of Godhead as all attractive personality of primal and eternal form, as he himself revealed in his own words in the Bhagavad Gita, the holy scripture of the Lord Sri Krishna, the Godhead. That's in this Constitution of Association. The same point in the League of Devotees. As you see, it's much more elaborate and very interesting. To imbibe and develop in the mind of the individual soul the all-attractive personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, in his primeval and eternal form, as he has revealed himself in his own words of the Bhagavad Gita. He has to be known all over the world in a manner as revealed by Lord Chaitanya, who practically demonstrated the transcendental process of approaching the absolute Godhead by his acts of congregational chanting of the holy name of Godhead. There is nothing in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya which is not intelligible by human reasoning or is against any religious feelings accepted by the civilized society of the world. Basically, what Prabhupada says here, it's really interesting. He says that this concept of God as a person can be presented to the people in general in such a way that it will not offend their religious feelings. It will not hurt their religious feelings. It can be presented in a very scientific and universal way that it will be acceptable by any reasonable person, and it actually can unify all the religions within this framework, philosophical framework, which Sri Krishna himself gives in Bhagavad Gita. it's really interesting because usually when we hear about these attempts to unify religion, to help people to get rid of their religious prejudice and so on and so forth, we always ultimately speak about some syncretic religion, which is ultimately impersonalism. Impersonalists, they propagate that if you propagate or preach about the personal concept of God, there will be clash. There will be religious disunity. There will be religious wars. Only the impersonal concept will unify people. But Prabhupada here very boldly and very clearly says, no, there is a personal concept. If you understand this personal concept of God properly, and how all other concepts, being sub-concepts or subsets of this personal idea, how all these concepts are included within the personal concept of all attractive personality, which Sri Krishna presented in Bhagavad Gita. If you understand this, it will be acceptable by any person. It doesn't matter which religion he follows. Any person can basically accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead as all attractive personality, because this is the most complete concept, and whatever concept of God you may have, is included there. And we can clearly show how your understanding of God is already there, included within this understanding or greater understanding of God as an all-attractive person. That's what Srila Prabhupada says here. And I'm analyzing this and showing how Bhagavad Gita actually gives all different. Bhagavad Gita is basically a review of different spiritual conceptions of God. And it's not just a review, it's, how to say this, hierarchically organized review. Showing that there is a lower concept and there is little higher concept, and then little higher concept and little higher concept. And I'm showing, the successions of these higher and higher concepts, which culminate in Krishna as all-attractive personality. So this is the different concepts which are there, which are presented in Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita agrees with this. We can, if we know Bhagavad Gita, we can basically deal with any people who profess or confess any religious ideas and say, yeah, this is there in Bhagavad Gita. Yes, we agree with this. But there is higher concept, a little higher concept, a little higher concept. So I'm showing here in the explanation of this point 6 different concepts which are presented in different parts of Bhagavad Gita in hierarchical way, and how ultimately they culminate in this idea of the personality of Godhead, full of sweetness. And if we understand this, that will be a great basis of our interface dialogue, and actually the foundation for the spiritual and religious unity of the world. If we understand the Prabhupada's idea, which he expressed in these points of his program, and of course in Bhagavad Gita and his other teachings. So that's a brief explanation of the second point of the program. And I just, again, very briefly present to you the third point of the program. And then I will try to explain the internal structure, how the whole document is structured. So the third point of the document, to bring together individuals in a society, regardless, it's also in the 7 purposes of ISKCON, slightly differently formulated, regardless of nationality and irrespective of creed or caste in order to develop a nearness to the Godhead, and thereby the idea that within the members and humanity at large there is an infinitesimal soul spirit that is a part and parcel in quality with the Godhead, and that all life is meant for the satisfaction to offset Godhead, the Supreme Soul. And in the League of Devotees, it sounds as follows: to bring together members of the society individually to one another and nearer to Godhead, who is the prime entity, and the individual soul are infinitesimal entities, and humanity at large, that individual soul being a part and parcel in quality of Godhead, the absolute whole. They, the individual souls, are meant for the satisfaction of the Supreme Soul, Godhead, as it is revealed in the scriptures. So basically, very briefly, the structure of the first 6 points is like this. First point is the program for our preaching, the broadest vision for preaching, what we should preach, how we should preach this Vedic paradigm. That's the broadest point. Actually, the whole document is structured like a funnel. The broader point is the first one, the next is little more narrow, and it goes like this when it comes to the society of devotees. So our message to the whole world is this Vedic paradigm, which is about Trinity of the soul being the prime entity within mind and the body, and how the mind is different from the soul, and how the body is different from the mind and the soul, and so on and so forth. The next one is more specific. It's about the concept of God. So these two constitute Sambandha Gyan, the understanding of the nature of the living entity or human being, more specifically, but of course all living entities, and the nature of God. The third point is the relationship. How, by understanding this, what we should do, what is our relationship with God, and how, by acting within this framework, or with this conceptual framework, within this understanding what is living entity and what is God, how we can achieve unity. But this point is not for the society in general. This is the point for the society of devotees. Srila Prabhupada, he's very clear that everyone can understand and be benefited from the first point. You're not this body, you're spirit soul. Try to live in a more in the way which is more congruent or harmonious with this understanding, and there will be peace in the society in general, and many problems will be solved. Then not everyone will understand God as a person, and not everyone will agree to serve Him. It's very clear that Prabhupada doesn't mean this point for the whole society. It's more specifically for the society of devotees. And then the fourth point, he is explaining how to do this, how to serve by chanting the holy name. That's the fourth point of the program. And then he goes on and he explains the fifth point and the sixth point. And then from the seventh point, he is much more specific, and he is explaining what we're supposed to do as devotees for the devotees. What is our mission for those people who joined ISKCON, who dedicated their life to serving Srila Prabhupada's mission, and what we should do. And there is also very interesting points, but I don't think I will be able to present everything. I'm just, igniting little interest to this, primarily these two documents, and perhaps if anyone is interested, to this little research which I did. So I guess that's it, unless you want me to speak a little more on any of these points, but I don't think it's necessary.
Maharaj, you began by talking about the unity and diversity, and the fact that it's already tearing apart, has been tearing apart, is gone. And then you moved into the discussion of this document, which, from what you had, from the preamble, I was expecting would be a deeper understanding of how we could actually create the unity in the diversity. We don't have to, as you said, we don't have to consider how to increase diversity. That's automatic. So perhaps you can address the more immediate problems for us that are that you were able to mine from this document of what would we need to do, or what would have to change in order for us to reverse that
pattern. Oh, yeah. Well, I did say what at least one point I did say. In my humble opinion, as I said, the diversity, the unhealthy diversity which we have, is because consciously or subconsciously, different people have different agendas. And how to change this, we should try to get Prabhupada's agenda. We should try to really establish the Prabhupada's agenda within our mind and within our heart. If this understanding of Prabhupada's agenda will be there, then it will be easier to speak the same language with other people. Now, what I can see, this unfortunate dynamic which Brahmatirtha Prabhu explained and you emphasized, people, they're just speaking the same thing again and again and again. And they don't hear each other. Why? Because they just have the agenda. There is no common agenda. There is no common language. They don't understand each other. So at least one solution could be, let's try to think what is our real mission, not the mission which we superimpose upon Prabhupada or upon the society. But of course, that's one answer to your question. There is another answer to your question. If we more deeply study the ideas of this document, it will give some other answer to this question. Specifically, this third point, which I very briefly discussed. I didn't discuss it in more details. In the third point, Prabhupada says that the key for unity is the service mood. When we have this enjoying mood, consciously or subconsciously, and basically enjoyment, how it may manifest. It may manifest as, in a subtle way, I know better. I'm the better knower of the Shastras, everyone should listen to me, and so on and so forth. So Prabhupada was very proud that he created the unity among different nations and everyone. And the secret of this unity is that everyone is steeped or established in this service mood. But when there is no emphasis in the service mood, then the natural tendency for the mood of enjoyment is manifested. And we know that variety is the mother of enjoyment. So diversity is a natural byproduct. Unhealthy diversity is the natural byproduct of this tendency to enjoy within ISKCON, so to speak. So it's interesting, again, if we analyze how Prabhupada saw it, and that's, I'm not speaking, unfortunately, we have been talking about these things too often, and sometimes these words don't register within us. But actually, this is a very practical program, how we can really reinforce this service mood within our society. You probably witness of it, and I definitely, within my limited experience within ISKCON, see how this tendency, more or less, to enjoy within ISKCON is manifesting more and more, even in different programs which we have. Like, too many festivals which we have. Oftentimes, the spirit of these festivals is quite an entertainment. There is no depth of this service moods. I'm not criticizing anything, but there are some subtle tendencies which are creeping in, and when people are talking with each other and cannot really hear what other people say, it's basically a manifestation of this enjoyment mood. I know better who you are to say, you're Mlecha, you're from America, and I'm from this background, or vice versa. You are just uneducated, or this and that. So that's Prabhupada's answer to this question, to really hammer again and again and again on this mood of service and humility. This unhealthy diversity is a result of the opposite tendencies, which unfortunately become quite prominent within the society as the time goes on.
Thank you. We have a number of questions, so we're going to take them in the order that they came up. Judah Karma first, then Sagar Swami, then Sahadev Prabhu, and then Parabhakti Prabhu. So, Judah Karma, you're up. Over.
Thank you. I read through your paper and the League of Devotees document and the other documents that were provided. And one thing I noticed is that in these, like in the League of Devotees prospectus and other things, Srila Prabhupada doesn't mention governance at all. In other words, how the League of, at least in the document that I read, he didn't say anything about how the League is going to be governed, who's going to make decisions, and things of that sort. Do you have any comment on that?
No, I didn't think about it, but my understanding is that Srila Prabhupada here specifically speaks about the vision and mission, and for the governance of the society, there was different document. He was writing different documents, separate documents, not to mix these two. This is more or less the visionary ideas. What is the vision and mission of the society? How to execute this? That's and Prabhupada had different ideas over the years. So I really didn't study this at depth, but this is just a general vision. That's my understanding.
And one more point, if I may. In the League of Devotees document, he makes the statements that 95% of the world's population is being exploited by, the 5% of polished demons who are, in other words, the leaders of society. And then he goes on to say that the League of Devotees can benefit both of them, both the 5% and the 95%. So I thought that was an interesting way of him identifying his League of Devotees as, in one sense, a revolutionary group, to cause a spiritual revolution in society on behalf of the 95%, but also the 5%. Interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Over.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and as I said, I think the whole society will be benefited if we meditate and study this and put these documents as a unifying principles of our society, or the vision of all the members of our society. Because Prabhupada, this whole both documents is about the unity for the whole world, and we cannot really establish the unity within our small society. So it basically means that something is wrong, that we are not really following Prabhupada's program, and that has to be seriously analyzed. Why?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Saraswami, your question?
So, Maharaj, thank you. It was very wonderful presentation, and it's really good that Rutakar Prabhu highlighted the non-political spirit of Prabhupada's presentation, because he didn't want to divide and rule. He wanted to benefit everybody regardless. And I just wanted to check, it seems that the first point is automatically connected to the other points. And my perception is that once we start doing something practical to benefit people, providing spiritual solutions to material problems, then naturally some of the people will be appreciating us and wanted to know more about Krishna consciousness, and then all other points, as you explained, through the funnel system will come into being. So if that understanding is correct, please comment on that. Then the question is, what shall we do to benefit people universally without discriminating between their religious affiliations or cultural affiliations, etc. So how do we perform that spiritual charity in non-religious fashion, so to say?
See, as far as I can understand, Prabhupada, he very much stressed non-sectarian nature of Krishna consciousness. Even as I explained, the second point, he's explaining this very personal and very, one may think of very sectarian concept of God, that it is actually non-sectarian. Or to speak about the first point is, it's not about religion, it's about our life and how to live properly in this world. And if we really understand this point ourselves, we will be able to present it in such a way that people will not be threatened by our presentation. Actually, I remember very much when we just started preaching in Russia and we started mass distribution of Bhagavad Gita, there was one letter which came after this campaign of distributing Bhagavad Gita, which touched me very much. The lady wrote, thank you very much for distributing these books. I read your Bhagavad Gita, and for the first time I really started to understand what is there in my Bible. And she specifically said my Bible. She was not going to change her religious affiliation, but by getting this non-sectarian, scientific, rational framework philosophical frameworks, she could understand. And there are so many such people who really start to understand what religion, what their religion is all about by understanding what this rational science, spiritual science, presented in Prabhupada's books. So really, open-minded people will not be threatened, and we can very boldly present it in such a way that nobody, will be offended by this. So I don't see any problem with presenting this and not upsetting the religious sentiments of other people.
Okay, Sahadev, are you done, Sagaraswami?
I just wanted, thank you, Maharaj. I just wanted maybe you could give some examples. How could we present our spiritual knowledge and practices in universal, spiritual, but not religious fashion, as if they say nowadays?
Well, this simple paradigm, Brahmatirtha Prabhu is here, Drutakarma Prabhu is also here. They're all pioneers of Bhaktivedanta Institute. And this is the foundation of the whole presentation of Bhaktivedanta Institute, that there is body, physical body, there is mind, which is subtle matter. Most of the people, even those people who say that mind is not, that there is some non-material principle, they somehow or other don't understand, don't distinguish between this non-material principle and the mind. So even in this very fundamental and very basic point, we have advantage that there is that the mind is a subtle matter and there is a soul which is ruling and which is the guiding principle in this trinity of body, mind, and soul. So there is nothing, this can be presented in a very, very, very non-sectarian way, easily, no problem. So, and the practical conclusions of it are very profound. If we think, the problem is that if we think we are the body always lacks something. And if we have this physical conception, there will be always this rampant competition between different people. But if we are soul, and then we don't need to compete with others. And you know better how there are so many preachers who presented it in a very nice way. The practical conclusions. It's basically, if we are soul, then other people are also soul, and therefore we're not supposed to kill other living entities. And, that's the first point of this. And of course, vegetarianism is coming from this, but not just vegetarianism for the sake of vegetarianism, but vegetarianism for the sake of the soul, with the understanding that we're doing the charity for the soul. Anyway, it's a big topic. The whole elaborate program of how to preach this can be designed just by meditating on these ideas of Prabhupada. And actually many preaching programs. One of this is, of course, Bhaktivedanta Institute.
Sahadev Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. This just to thank you and congratulate you. This is very exciting and inspiring. There's something very important and something very practical I've heard in a long time. There is hope, Maharaj, as long as leaders like you are discussing and mindful of Srila Prabhupada's agenda. And 7 billion people are there with 7 billion agendas, and even an ant is here to express itself. So Maharaj, you have brought out something very important. And universe of bhakti is huge, but we belong to this segment called Prabhupada Nudas. So as you pointed out, the differences have started surfacing already. So Maharaj, just I wanted to comment that in our quest for Krishna consciousness, we cannot afford to lose our Prabhupada consciousness. We may not have even begun to understand the greatness of Prabhupada. Just I wanted to tell one point that Bengali of Srila Prabhupada predates the Bengali of Lord Chaitanya era. Who was he actually? So Prabhupada consciousness is even broader and includes Krishna consciousness. I mean, even Krishna claims being conscious of his devotee is greater than being conscious of him. So Maharaj, we have no common ground other than Srila Prabhupada. So yes, you are from Russia, we are from India, and so many differences. But Prabhupada is the connecting thread which connects all the currents of your movement. So thank you, Maharaj, from the bottom of my heart. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Parvati.
Hare Krishna, thank you, Maharaj, for your wonderful explanation. I have two considerations about that. You say that now we are facing with a lot of differences compared to the beginning of our movement. But of course, at the beginning of our movement, most of the devotees were coming from the same background. It was quite normal that, for young people, me too, also we leave everything just to serve in the movement, no deep education, or at least very few devotees were doing that. Nowadays, the situation is completely changed, And of course, when you enlarge the number of people, different perception of interest in entering in the spiritual part of the Vaishnavism and Krishna consciousness and so on. And of course, there are different interests. So the point is that if you look at other religion, they faced hundreds of years ago with this problem. Because in the beginning, everyone tried to assimilate to the same concept. And they were spending hundreds of years in fighting about that. And also we got, I from Italy, I know well the story of the Christianity and so on. They did a big schism into that, and also a lot of quarrel, because slowly they go into the mood of try to integrate the different aspects of the same religion. And what they found is not possible to have unity in any place, but they have to accept the concept is to accept something that is very relevant, like for them is to accept that Jesus is the one, is the original prophet, and to accept the leadership of the Vatican. That's it for them. Otherwise, you can find a different current inside that. You have the Benedictine, you have the Franciscan, but you have to remember the Franciscan they has been hundreds of years disconnected by the Vatican. Just recently, the last decades, they become recognized and admitted again in the Vatican. So my point is that we cannot, more we become bigger, more we become difficult to have the same mood, the same way of thinking. We have to look much more into the integration. We have to, by the way, I don't say that we have to copy what other religions they did, but at least we have to look into that. And as far as I understand, all Srila Prabhupada, before just to look into the other, just to find the best way to grow up the movement without pushing to have the same mood, the same idea. Of course, the mood of service has to be there. This is some basic principle. But the other, we have to harmonize the difference. That's my opinion. I don't know if you have something to say about that, Maharaj.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Parabhakti Prabhu. And I will also, maybe answering this, I will also touch the question of Dhruta Karma Prabhu, which he asked regarding the how to govern or how to basically guide this whole huge society when it becomes so big and so diversified and so unruly, with many different entities and many different, people from different backgrounds, as you said. There is a way still. It's not going to work if we try to impose some vertical structure. It's not going to work if we try to, make a very strict administrative power. It's scenario for failure. It's not going to work. Any dictatorship or whatever, our society is as such that we don't really have all these mechanisms how to govern by this material means. But there is a way to unify the society, nevertheless, and to make it harmonious. And there is only one key word for this, that is education. If people are educated in the same way, with the same values, and if all the leaders are engaged in this education, then education will bring unity. And that's the only way to bring unity and to govern such a big society. And our society, even though it's relatively small, still it's big enough to be governed by a group of people without finances or without other, material means to rule. So, in my humble opinion, there is only one way, education. But unfortunately, we don't have unified education. There should be some at least, basic structure for the education of all the members. Everyone who joins ISKCON has to know this is the one thing which I have to learn first and assimilate first, then the next step. So this whole system should be designed, in my humble opinion. And that's the way to bring unity. If people will be, we all know that when people, they were sitting behind the same desk in a school or in a university, even 30 years after, they have a lot in common because they got the same values, the same ideas, and same years they spent together. So education on all levels, and we should start from the education of the leaders. If leaders are educated in a similar way, with the similar ideas, with, as Sahadev Prabhu said, in the ideas of Prabhupada, with the very clear understanding of what Prabhupada wants, not just quoting Prabhupada, as is fashionable now. I have my set of quotes and somebody else has some other set of quotes, and we are fighting and we don't really hear each other. So being educated in Prabhupada's teaching in a very sincere way is the way to rule the society, to govern the society, and the way to establish unity within the society.
Before I go on to Kalakanta and Mahatma and Sureshwar and Nayana Mantri, I think I could maybe spice up the presentation with a question to you about how you would reconcile your views on the Vaishnavi Diksha Guru issue. If I remember correctly, you are a traditionalist that should not be, women shouldn't be gurus, if I remember correctly. And how would you take that viewpoint and apply it to the whole concept of creating unity, given the fact that this is, an existing issue within ISKCON now?
First of all, I'm not I'm not a traditionalist, nor this, how you say this, progressist, or how you say the opposite to the liberal. I'm not liberal, I'm not traditionalist. I think, my view on this issue is very simple. I think when we talk about some external qualification for being a guru, we will never be able to reconcile the differences. But if we talk about the qualification, the real qualification of being a guru, regardless of what is your gender, what is your generation, what is your age, if we establish a very clear set and of the qualification for being a guru, and whoever possesses this qualification, and definitely the sex will not be part of this qualification because it's a spiritual qualification and sex is a material qualification. Bhakti can harmonize everything because Bhakti is not judging according to externals. This dispute which we have, this argument which we have within the society, is argument between those people who say that very traditional, and traditional people, they tend to attach very great value to the external things, and those people who are liberal, who try to nullify the difference and this egalitarian ideas that everyone is equal and this and that, but they're both external. And Bhakti is neither about this nor about that. Bhakti is about the internal qualification. And if we try, and it's more difficult, it's very simple, easy to judge according to external qualification. Yes, somebody is woman, so she shouldn't be a guru, or somebody is woman, therefore she should be guru. She has the right to be a guru. No, both are wrong. If we try to establish the internal set of qualification and judge according to the internal set of qualification, then there is no argument, because internally there is no difference between there is no difference on external level, but still there is internal qualification. So instead of arguing who could or who could not be according to the external qualifications, I would just establish the completely different set of qualifications to be a guru through the education and through spiritual qualification.
I'll turn it over to Kalakanta, who I'm sure will pursue this with greater vigor.
Thank you, Maharaj. The whole presentation and the concept was wonderful. And I really appreciate you bringing these things out, sharing them with the society in such a succinct way. I was curious, in the course of your studies, if you've come across anything relevant to the actual demographics of ISKCON that have transpired over the last 50 plus years. Initially, the membership was almost entirely young Western people from Europe, America, Australia, and progressively it incorporated large numbers of people from Eastern Europe, Russia, and subsequently India, and then the Indian diaspora all over the world. So at this point, the Indian diaspora in the West is by far the prominent congregational constituency. So we have these issues, not only of gender, as you were discussing, but the nationality. And in his vision for this worldwide society, did Prabhupada touch upon the conflicts which seem to have arisen based on nationality, on political views, like Brahmatirtha mentioned, like the Hindutva kind of nationalist view that has seemed to be incorporated in some places. The ideas also of having religious liberty or gender equity, that differ from country to country, society to society. Did Prabhupada anticipate this, envision this, address this in any of any of the research that you have done?
Well, definitely Prabhupada addressed this sort of stuff. Maybe not so directly as as we would require at this day and age, but in general, I would say that Prabhupada. We all know that traditionalists they blame Prabhupada that he is too liberal, and of course liberals. They also said the same about Prabhupada, that he's too traditional. I'm quoting Allen Ginsberg, who was saying that Srila Prabhupada, I love him, but he's so outdated and so utterly traditional that he will not have any success. So Prabhupada, he was definitely a mixture of both, not mixture, synthesis of both. And in my humble opinion, this synthetic power, the power to synthesize these two tendencies, is the power of bhakti. Because love is very traditional and at the same time very liberal. So what I should say is that, my analysis, my philosophical analysis of these two tendencies, those who are traditional, they have leaning towards this karma tendency, karma kanda tendency, with very strict hierarchical structure, this and that, and traditional values, all these elements. This is all karma kanda, strict purity, all this, and basically very strict hierarchy. And those who are into this liberal thing, their leaning is clearly towards the jnana side. Everyone is equal. This is jnana, basically. We're all the same. This egalitarian idea, it's covered or not so covered in personalism. So we have jnana and we have karma. The jnana is the thesis, and karma is the thesis, jnana is the antithesis, and bhakti is the synthesis. Bhakti takes this understanding that there is a hierarchy, and Prabhupada was very much stressing this point. He was saying that, we are not equal, women are not equal than men, and, we are not equal. He's stressing that there is a hierarchy. So he was taking this, but at the same time, he says that from the spiritual point of view, we're all equal. From the material point of view, we will never be equal. From the spiritual point of view, we will never be different. We by nature are equal. So, and how to reconcile this? And, these two tendencies, karma and jnana, they are fighting, from eternity, from the time immemorial, and they don't, and the only reconciliation is bhakti, because bhakti respects hierarchy. We very much respect hierarchy. We very much respect traditional values. We very much respect the beauty of the tradition. But at the same time, we very much stress that the spiritual, equality is greater, and it can overshadow these differences. And if you develop spiritually, it doesn't matter from which background you are. You can totally transgress your limitations from the material background by spiritual development alone. So this is, and if we are bhaktas, if bhakti rules supreme, then it will be very easy to reconcile these contradictions. But if we give way to our material tendencies or our upbringing, then we will be, Trump's followers or Biden's followers. So within ISKCON, will be some, and there will be no unity.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And now Sureshwar Prabhu. You're muted.
Was I next or was Mahatma next?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Mahatma's next.
Okay.
Thank you. What a gentleman.
Thank you, Sureshwar. Bhakti Vijnana Maharaj, I love the presentation, but I have doubts.
Okay.
I just wanted to share the doubts. There's two doubts that came up. I mean, I have more, but just triggered two things. When you were talking about the Christian lady and how much she liked Bhagavad Gita, and I was thinking, in ISKCON, we want results. So in this broad picture, we say, well, we haven't made any devotees in the last 20 years, but we've influenced society. Well, how can we determine that? How will the ISKCON leaders accept that? Because we're always looking for some more concrete results. That's point number one. Point number two, ISKCON has a history of being very anti-anything other than 100% dedication to ISKCON and the GBC. So if the devotees went to Sridhar Maharaj, then to Puri Maharaj, and to Narayana Maharaj, and now we're talking about unifying religion. And you understand psychology, there are people who can only see black and white. So in consideration of all of this, have you ever become depressed and just think, my document's not going to work because we have these realities? And how do you deal with that?
So point number one, I think I don't see a problem with the point number one, because if we preach in the broadest possible way, in a non-sectarian way, there will always be people who will want to become more and more interested and go deeper and deeper and deeper. And in fact, that will be a very good people, because these people, will have a very, very intellectual approach. Those people who, intellectual people, they don't like narrow-minded presentation. So we should not be afraid of giving broad-minded presentation. Yes, some people will be just satisfied with this broad-mindedness and say, I'm fine with what I have. Thank you very much. What you gave to me, I'm happy. But there will be people for sure, and it will be good people, really first-class people. Maybe not first-class people, but really good people, intellectual people who will be attracted by this presentation and will definitely see the, how to say this, the beauty of this presentation and the superiority of this presentation. As there is a joke that how it goes, that that every other religion says that this is the best religion, and we don't say that we're the best religion, therefore we're the best religion. So if you present it in this way, we don't say that we're the best religion, meaning that we're the best religion. There will be people who will be attracted to this presentation. So I don't see a problem with your first doubt, but I do see a big problem with your second doubt. I think it's quite relevant. So this second doubt, I don't know what to do with. But I personally think that the overreaction, which was definitely there in ISKCON leadership in regard to all these preachers, was partially due to some insecurity and partially or largely due to the immaturity of the followers who were creating all these things. You know, the neophytes, they will always create this sort of troubles. So I think when we become more secure internally, when we have more, realizations as the society, and when in general we will educate better the devotees who join, so that they will not manifest these unfortunate traits of neophyte devotees, and will not preach in a destructive way, then we may reconcile the differences between these different groups of Gaudiya Vaishnavas and establish more respectful and more healthy relationship with them, while maintaining our identity as the followers of Srila Prabhupada. So I think it's possible, but I very much agree with your doubt. It's difficult. That will be much more difficult than to establish the peace all over the world and unity of all the nations. To establish unity within Gaudiya Vaishnava community will be much more difficult. because it's easy to be in peace with other people, but to be in peace with somebody who is almost like you, but still somewhat different, is much more difficult. So.
Thank you. And Sureshwar Prabhu, you're the last question up there.
First of all, Bhakti Vijnana Maharaj, just thank you for your very wise and good-natured presentation. I really appreciated your bhakti. I have a question and a follow-up, if it's appropriate. So the question is, when you were speaking, I couldn't help but think of also your presentation to many of us who took the hermeneutic pilot. And I was thinking how your study of the Constitution of Association and the League of Devotees Prospectus may have been informed by your hermeneutic studies, or the other way, how your hermeneutic studies may have been inspired by Prabhupada's very deep and for me, the Constitution of Association, it shows Prabhupada's humanity and his spirituality. It's really great. So, could you speak a little bit, first of all, about how those two studies, the hermeneutic and the studies of those documents?
I first started studying these documents. Hermeneutics came later. But you're right, definitely, we should educate our members how to reconcile the difference and how to really see the forest behind the trees.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so to drill down a little bit on education, that was a big theme of yours, the big reconciler or the big hope. How does it work that we all have our agendas, conscious or unconsciously? We bring our prarabdha karmas, to the hearing process. and they sometimes get in the way. So, are you hopeful, or how does it work, that we bring our agendas to the table, to the family table, where we have all the fights, and those agendas, they get in the way of discovering our common interests beneath our agendas. So how does the hermeneutic process actually expose our agendas to us and bring us to some deeper unity amidst our dizzying diversity?
See, that's the main point of real education. When we understand that education implies transformation, not just, external education, external understanding of, changing slightly our worldview, but if we understand that real education implies or requires the deeper internal transformation, including the agendas. The agendas can be changed through the education if the education is proper. I don't say that any education, any theoretical education has this effect. But at the same time, we all know that even just reading Srila Prabhupada's books is a transformative experience. There is some transformation, especially if we do it systematically, if we do it within the society of devotees, if we discuss it deeply, then transformation will take place. But if we also, make sure that there are some other, and then of course the teacher is very important. If the teacher influences you, if the teacher himself has a very profound realization, then his realizations are shared with you in the process of education. He may be speaking something, but he also is transferring in the meantime his experience and his realizations to you without even speaking about them explicitly. This process is taking place. That's neuroscience. Neuroscience says that, if you're learning something from somebody who has a lot of experience, you're getting his experience. No matter whether he speaks about this explicitly or not, still some transformation will take place. So when I speak about education, I mean transformation. And of course, we have to make sure that the whole process of education is transformative, that it's not theoretical. And therefore, of course, the online education should not be the most important education. Of course, nowadays you cannot really have education without online. It's all online. But still, we have to understand that at least some segments of education should be offline, because this personal touch from my heart to your heart, from the heart of the teacher to the heart of the student is very important, because that's what transforms the heart of the people and changes the agenda. So I think our society has a bright future if we have, good teachers who teach not only online but also offline. Yes. And of course, hermeneutics, the whole process, hermeneutical process, is very transformative itself. If we teach how, and if we learn how to deal with each other, how to, do this Vada type of discussion rather than Jalpo or Vitanda, and so on and so forth, that's, by this process, we will influence each other. By sitting together, speaking together about this, listening together, hearing, and going through this process, we will be transformed and agendas will be transformed.
Thank you for giving us hope, Maharaj.
So, if I may extrapolate from your prediction, Maharaj, then next week's meeting of the Vaishnava Diksha Guru proponents and opponents will end up with a unified and happy conclusion. Is that correct?
Only in person. Not online.
Yeah, only if it will take place in Govardhan. By the influence of the holy place.
As they say, hope springs eternal. Well, I'd like to give the concluding, thanks to Maharaj to one other of our members who hasn't spoken and who is quite outspoken. So I'm going to hand the thank you over to Atmavedana Swami, who has remained characteristically silent during this exposition.
Thank you very much, Nasinanda Prabhu and Bhakti Vijnana Maharaj. I am very much impressed by your presentation, and as Sureshwar Prabhu says, we have hope that one day we will go beyond our bodily concept and see more, as you present in your words, on a bhakti platform rather than just externals, because whether we like it or we don't like it, externals are always going to be there. It is part and parcel of this material nature. But by Prabhupada's mercy, he has brought down something which is very unique. And it is not his own, but he is presenting Krishna from Bhagavad Gita as solely based on spirit soul rather than material platform. So I am very much impressed, and I don't have much to say, but I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart that maybe your perseverance in producing this document will go wider in our society, and I hope the result of that is that some very solid platform of education will arise from that. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Atmavedana Maharaj. Thank you.
So on behalf of all of the Sabha members, we are very grateful for your time. We'll be looking forward to getting the document, which we got translated, but it has a lot of anomalies in it. So if we can get, I think that Maharaj is going to get your better translated copy to us so we can look at that instead. And I really appreciate your coming on. Would you be willing to make another appearance in the future if we request it?
Yeah, I'm your servant. I'm your puppet. Whatever you like.
Well, in that mood, then we will kindly look forward to another session, who knows when, but thank you again. It's always wonderful seeing you and having your Sangha.
Thank you. Thank you, Nrsimhananda Prabhu. Thank you. Thank you very much for also this analysis of gurus which you presented to us. This guru
We're going
survey.
to continue with our meeting. We have 10 more minutes, so we're going to get a couple more reports.
Okay.
Thank you again for
Thank you.
attending.